Riva. Can I just say that I've been really wanting to talk to you. The past month since the last video that I did, so much has happened and I've been in a highly reflective space and have had probably just an overload of lessons about simplifying things, and unfortunately / fortunately that meant taking longer to do this next video than I wanted to. But the fortunate part about that is I'm taking care of myself, so we love that. I've been thinking a lot about fear. I've been thinking a lot about the unknown. I've been thinking a lot about all of the things that make it really hard to do what we came here to do, and to do the things that we're meant to in order to grow and evolve. I think the wildest thing about fear is that it's rational, right? We are human bodies and we have these physiological responses that are meant to protect us and keep us safe from harm and to keep us alive. And what's crazy and messy about it is that we live now, in 2022, we live in these very strange circumstances where we have very real reason to be afraid sometimes. Like, there's still very real physical threats. And there's also a lot of perceived threats that are, compounded from memory and the past. And there's so many different layers to it, and really picking apart and untangling everything and getting to the root of, like, this is something to be aware of, and this is something I can actually let go of, that can be really challenging. I've been thinking a lot about what it takes to fortify yourself against fear so that you can actually go out and take those risks, because I don't really believe in, at this point in my life, I can definitely say that I've had some deliciously reckless moments. But at this point in my life, I'm far more interested in understanding what makes me feel prepared enough and safe enough to then dive in the deep end. So the unknown. The weird thing is that a lot of times the place that we don't want to go, the place that we're resisting, is exactly the place that we need to go. And that's so counterintuitive. And I think where the human experience becomes very spiritual is that I don't think other animals have that experience where they need to override and learn about and unpack their traumas in order to be present with some very real, like, lesson or challenge that's going to help them grow. They're probably just in the immediacy of the reaction to, like, being chased by a tiger or something like that. But us, we get all these juicy extras. So what does it take to face that? And how do we really know when something is a perceived threat versus a real threat? What kinds of awareness or conversations or relationships around us can help us parse through those things and get clear on it? Because otherwise, so many of us end up just walking around in these reactive states, right? Responding to things and thinking that we're protecting ourselves when in fact we might be holding ourselves back. I have had social anxiety, and it comes from a very real place. Like, I know that I'm someone who's had to deal with a lot of projections, and I'm also very sensitive. So dealing with that, when I go into social situations sometimes, it's gone a lot better. But I immediately feel that sensation overwhelming my whole body of like, oh my God, I'm about to absorb tons of shit that isn't even mine to carry, but I don't really know how to stop it, kind of weird energetic boundary dance stuff. It got very comfortable for me to just not go out into the world. And it took a while for me to realize that in that growth edge, that's the thing I needed to push past in order to elevate myself. Because otherwise what ends up happening is I'll self-isolate, and then I'm feeling disconnected, and I'm actually not allowing myself to even get certain needs met because of fear. Because I'm so afraid of being in a particular circumstance that maybe I was in enough times to make it feel like a very real threat. But at some point, I have to face that. But I think the key is really like thinking about how can I be in right relationship to my fear, with my fear. Who said this? Somebody said something to me recently that was like, fear tells you what you really want. I thought that was interesting. I think that's an interesting perspective, because I think that, you know, that's sometimes just wildly inaccurate, but I can see how it's accurate. And I think that the ways that it's accurate, or the times that it's accurate, are when, for example, maybe you have, like me, fear of performing, but also the immense desire to do that. And so the fear is telling me, oh, I really care about this. I don't want to fuck this up. And that's the kind of situation when you want to lean in, you know, versus, dang, I don't want to go across this drawstring bridge that looks like it's gonna fall into the abyss because it wasn't built safely. Like, I don't think that's telling me about what I want. I think that's me being smart to not go against something that will potentially kill me. We ideally are smart enough to be able to differentiate between the two in situations that are that black and white, but a lot of times it's Mercury in retrograde. A lot of times it's murky. And I think that the specific type of fear that I'm probably thinking about here is like emotional fear, not physical fear. Not somebody is literally about to attack me right now and I can see that. Though that is its own category of thing that I would like to talk about too. But recently I became friends with someone who mirrored me in a really interesting way, where I felt like they had to face certain situations that for me were absolutely terrifying. And I think I had to similarly face things that were terrifying for them as well. But there's this weird reflecting thing where I think we could see in each other this survival, right? And there was something to be learned from that, and there's something that expanded in me in just knowing this person and in just recognizing, oh, this thing that I've been so afraid of, like this person has done that and has done this and has done this and survived and is actually doing quite well. It made me realize how much I've allowed fear to keep me from trying new things and from taking risks. And I don't want that. You know what I mean? I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for your homies. I don't want that for any of us. And so the question I've been posing is like, what are the conditions for deepening into any sort of practice? Because what are the conditions for, you know, if the fear is falling in love, like a safe love ship where you can truly fall and feel comfortable enough to know that you're going to be okay to take that risk, whether it's moving to a new country or quitting your job or cutting your hair off or anything that feels radical and different. I don't know. I think there's something to be said for noticing where and what areas of life is it easier to take those risks, easier to go after boldly that thing, and in what areas is it harder? And what would it take to translate what makes you feel confident to move in this area with boldness into another area of your life? How can we affirm ourselves in what we're doing right over here, so that when it comes to this stuff over here, which is maybe a little bit more uncomfortable and unknown, we can be like, oh yeah, well, somebody else has an issue with doing that, and here I am doing that, so maybe I can do this too, and maybe they can do this thing that they thought that they couldn't do that I'm doing. What else has been on my mind? Well, it's Libra season. Everything's prettier now, I think. There is something that I'm appreciating about this moment that's encouraging me to think about beauty and think about day-to-day moments and day-to-day actions and choices and just tiny things to improve the quality of my life. I think for me, I often can get really stuck in like the things that aren't working, but I had a good reminder from a mentor of mine today that adding up just a bunch of small things that make you feel good. For me, I really like looking at flowers. It sounds so cliche and corny, but I swear to God, like, if you're walking with me down the street, I'm gonna stop and look at the flowers frequently. And that's something that's free. That's something I can just go outside and do, depending how concrete the area is. I can just kind of go outside and do that. I appreciate the season because I feel like it's asking us to just slow down and pay attention and not be moving so fast. And I feel like there's something about like loading up on these rich, sensuous, yummy, tiny little moments to help propel through the harder stuff. Because all that fear and all that unknown and all these sacred mysteries and all of that shadow stuff is getting worked through at the same time and in the same universe as these cute flowers are existing in. They both are happening. Like Libra, you know? I had another conversation with a friend recently, and she was sharing about, you know, attachment theory and things that probably most of y'all know about, but about how kids will be more likely to go out and take risks if they have a secure relationship with at least one parent, and because they really know and feel that they can kind of fall back and recalibrate and find their grounding again if they go through a situation that shakes them. Children who are perhaps insecurely attached, they feel unable to take certain risks because there's not that sense that there's something grounding there to help them get back to, you know, a level ground if something does go wrong, which it's life, and that is inevitable, that things are gonna go kind of like this. And reparenting ourselves, and as we all on some level have to do, what are the things that bring a sense of safety and groundedness and just some semblance of like, I am here on earth and that's okay for yourself? And how much are you just pushing, fraying your nervous system? Or on the other end of the spectrum, how much are you just sitting stagnant in your comfort, completely afraid to do anything differently? It's like, where on that spectrum are you, you know? I suspect that many folks are somewhere on that comfort side. I feel like that comfort can look even, it can be disguised, right? Like psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, we're involved in all these weird fucking mind games with ourselves, constantly convincing ourselves that like certain actions or behaviors or whatever are normal and healthy or warranted. And I don't know, I guess my question is just like, what's your /our/my, whatever, all of us, system of accountability and of checks and balances to make sure that we are not just getting stuck? I have such a high level of respect for people who are self-aware to actually willfully, consistently face yourself honestly and continuously be in a process of removing your masks and saying, wow, I may have been wrong about this. With that, anything feels possible. But that alone is so terrifying for people. Like, talk about fear. The fear of removing your mask. Is there anything scarier than that? For the general population, probably not, because everyone wants to feel like they belong. Everyone wants to feel some semblance of acceptance. And removing your mask is so vulnerable. And it falls into that weird category of like real versus perceived threat, because obviously emotional damage is still real. It's just not necessarily always immediately tangible in that way. I can talk all day and night about it, but I'm still working through it. I still know the ways that I wear my masks, and I think that my prayer really in my art, in my creative practices, in my wellness practices, and these videos that, you know, and everything that I do is like, can I remove my mask a little bit more? And in doing that, can I encourage you to do the same? And can we then potentially connect a little bit more deeply and authentically with ourselves and with life by doing that? Because all the like ego shit is just why, you know, just why. It truly why. Is there a real sense of satisfaction that's going to come from even achieving any level of success through wearing a mask? Because at the end of the day, it's not really going to be you. These are some of the things that I've been thinking about. I actually want to pull up my Substack post and read a couple of things. So this is the poem from Rumi that I really resonated with, called Bird Wings. Your grief for what you've lost lifts a mirror up to where you're bravely working. Expecting the worst, you look and instead, here's the joyful face you've been wanting to see. Your hand opens and closes and opens and closes. If it were always a fist or always stretched open, you would be paralyzed. Your deepest presence is in every small contracting and expanding, the two as beautifully balanced and coordinated as bird wings. Oh my God. It gets at that duality that is inherent in life. For me, at least, part of what makes me feel alive is to feel fully both what is within my control and within my power, and what is radically so far beyond my control and outside of my power. And to be in that dance with the two of those things creates a deep level of humility and feeling of aliveness that I just strive for and desire. Like, that's how I want to live my life, in that space. I think the only way to do that is to be in some sort of relationship with fear, like to actually have a relationship with fear rather than seeing it as this thing to be avoided or quenched or suppressed. Fear is information. That's for sure. Sometimes it probably tells us about what we really want, and sometimes it might speak to past lifetimes. It's just, there's so much information in fear, and I feel like it's really deeply spiritual and divine information. It's kind of like, I think Obama, who said luck is preparation meets opportunity, and I think that strength is preparation meets courage, you know? Like, that probably didn't sound as nice as it did in my head, but I think that it's really just like, how can I am gonna have to face some shit. I am going to, and nothing I do can prevent that. Nothing's gonna make my life be free of dealing with the things that life has. So what really makes me feel prepared and strong enough to take that on? To live fully. I mean, it's gotta be worth it, right? Like, the more, when I imagine the highest version of myself, she's someone who is so powerful that she can go out into the world, into the wild, into all of these spaces and hold her own and know that she's gonna navigate it absolutely to the best of her ability. Unfuckwithable, which I think is a term my mom coined, at least in my life, in my awareness. What are the things that we need to do every day to make us feel unfuckwithable and also still malleable and still humble to life, so that it's not ego and it's not this like bravado, it's not mask. So these are the very deep conversations I've been having in my brain. And yeah, just on a personal note, everything is flipped over and turned inside out for me right now. So I'm figuring out what to hold on to and what to let go of. But this still feels like a nice way to share. I appreciate you being here and listening and just being on this experiment with me and helping me practice different modes of expression. It's deeply healing and important, and I guess my prayer and my hope is that there's some sort of real, genuine connection that forms between us and also encourages some sort of genuine form of connection for you with yourself and with people in your life. That's my intention here. And to be honest, that's my intention with everything that I do. So hopefully that comes across. And yeah. Thank you for being here, and I will talk to you soon. You're my little flowery friend. Bye.